All right. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us today. I think we're going to go ahead and get started. In this webinar, we want to talk about how to retain more members and increase non-interest revenue. My name is Erin Gilbert, and I work for Onboard Informatics, the leader in data-driven member engagement. I'm also joined by Adam Stein.
Good morning, Erin. Adam Stein.
Good morning. Yes. Today, we're going to talk about something really exciting, new ways to increase member retention and non-interest revenue. Let me see here.
So, Erin, I think I can speak to this, this first slide fairly well. And I think when we talk about member engagement, whether it's existing members or getting new members to investigate your financial institution, I think today's value proposition is uniquely different than yesterday's value proposition. Some of you may have seen this little flashing man GIF. It was very popular about 10, 15 years ago in mortgage marketing. And literally, it really didn't convey any information, or at least very little, to the consumer. But 10 years ago, that was all it took. To get somebody to click into your website and start digesting your material. Today's solutions need to be a little bit different. They have to offer the consumer something that is personalized around the request for the financial services they're looking for. It has to create some exclusive information to them and allow them to come away informed and opt into your institution's offerings. And if you can do all those things effectively, and we'll talk about this a little bit later on, because Erin, I think I'm going to pass this back to you. I think those are sort of the cornerstones of creating a financial Amazon experience, if you will, where consumers can go and find out what the market has to bear for them and actually consume your offers from your institution and transact.
Right, and in doing so, the results of marketing in this way are pretty phenomenal. We see them generating 7.8 times more unique site traffic, leads and referrals cost significantly less, and you get more leads into those referrals. So we're excited about what we're going to cover today because the results are so compelling.
Right. Those are all really good points. Here's an example of today's marketing strategy. This is actually an email that comes out of our CRM. Now, every other CRM in the universe has some welcome email akin to this that says, "Dear Carmen, I'm a financial professional. You call me, I'll call you." But when we get into that personalized, specific environment in the offer itself, you'll note, I don't know how clearly this comes across, but this $366,000 75% loan-to-value purchase loan with a 760 FICO, that's actually Carmen's specific loan request. So she's able to identify that as specific information personalized to her. And these links allow her to do everything from get amortization schedules, pull down service booklets, and go back and shop in a more engaged fashion with the institution. These are also really great tools, by the way, for your traditional business partners as well. Sorry, go ahead, Erin, back to you.
Yeah, very exciting. So hopefully we painted a picture of why this is going to be so important. The agenda we want to cover today is kind of describing this new approach in a little more detail and why it works, and then talking specifically about some of the tools you'll need to implement it and what metrics you should be looking at to make sure you're successful. So let's take a step back. When you think about how you connect to your members today, likely you're doing a variety of things. Maybe you run ads or print, maybe even do things like billboards. Likely most of you are doing email blasts today. In the past, what we've done as marketers is have one message that we convey to the masses. But as we all know from our own experience as consumers, things are changing. The sales funnel has actually become rather obsolete. It was created in the 1800s and well before the internet age. And so 87% of consumers now don't follow this path. So the way we speak to consumers and frankly member expectations have changed quite a bit. And you can see why. They have all this information in their pocket, a plethora of information, research options, data at their fingertips, whether they're making a deposit or refinancing their homes. They can do that with a click of the button. They don't need to go anywhere to access this information. It lives in their pocket. So this access kind of changes everything, starting with how credit unions and brands connect with and communicate with members. So what do members care about? Well, when considering a purchase of any kind, only 13% say it's about exploring options. So what matters to them? Well, when we look at it, what really matters to them is themselves, what they're feeling, what their impulses are. So we have to consider that when we send out any communication. Like that piece that Adam spoke to earlier, that addressed a specific individual. It was filled with content that was relevant to her, and that's going to resonate because Carmen, I think her name was, is caring about Carmen. So this is the new kind of funnel that people are looking at. If you think that the linear path is dead, in the age of content and information, this accessibility, members now want a journey that's catered to their own wants and needs. So something that feels like a unique experience just for them. And that's kind of this loop. So when you're thinking about how you're engaging with members, touching members, whether they're in your branches or whether it's online, think about that they're always kind of going through these different phases, and they can go in and out of them at any point. So make sure as you're communicating to them, you're touching on all these different aspects. So how do you do that? Well, the first thing you need to do is identify your members and personalize the content they receive. So you need to identify who they are, what's important to them, personalize that content, and in doing so, you'll create a more holistic experience. So how do you identify your members? How can you really find out what is important to them? We all do segmentation, but today you should segment your membership not by just who they are, but what they care about. And you know a lot about your members. So think about that when thinking about how you want to communicate to them. What keeps them up at night? What do they value? Understand who you're talking to. Why are they going to your site? Why do they belong to your credit union? What are they looking for? And what can you create that, in essence, reassures them that you understand their journey and can offer help? The most powerful marketing today starts with empathy. And if you start to think about things that way, you can then offer guidance, answer questions, and solve problems, which is going to get a lot better response in terms of retaining your members and in generating that non-interest revenue. So, identify. So how can you do this? Well, there's a lot of different ways you can do it. The example that I came up with was you can use data. And you can use data to identify, for example, when they put their property on the market for sale. Oh, sorry about that. So what will that tell you? Well, it will tell you that likely they are going to be in the market for a mortgage, which is interesting. But what it will also tell you is that this is something they care about. So if you can deliver information on that property that they're thinking all the time about, that's going to be compelling. So identify life events, identify what matters to them, and you can use data to do that. And a lot of that data you already have. And then you want to personalize that message. So this is an example of a very standardized way to personalize. If you put their name on the email, you'll see open rates on average increase about 40%. But you can do that even more with something that, like what Adam showed you earlier. So something that speaks directly person to person, makes that connection, talks directly to them, and shows them variable, dynamic information on something that you know they care about based on the first phase, which was identification. Finally, you want to complete create a complete experience. So if they're going to engage with a piece of communication, maybe you mailed them something, maybe you emailed them something, you want to have kind of you want to close the loop, so to speak. So if they go back to your site, like what, again, Adam was talking about earlier, they can engage with information in a more dynamic way that, again, really specifically things that they care about. So this is an example of a you could create using data, again, that most of you probably already have, but that makes the user feel like they're part of the process.
Erin, that's excellent content. You know, I enjoy doing these webinars with you because you're an expert in your field, and it's a pleasure to do this with somebody like you. I want to carry that message forward on the personalized offer side and talk about the consumer's decision tree once you've got them engaged and they're specifically now going back and interacting with your website. And at this point, you've now identified their need and you've spoken to it, and they either have a current need to consume a financial service from your credit union, or they're looking forward because of the messaging you've got to solve a future problem. In either case, they now have some sort of outcome that they'll get a negative, you know, if I avoid getting the mortgage on the home I'm purchasing, right? If I avoid that decision to go shop, right? There's a negative outcome because I'm ill-prepared and my current home is selling. Or it may simply be something, a matter of cash allocation and doing something different to restructure their financial obligations. In either case, your messaging has got them to this point. And at this point, I want everybody on the call to think about this one very simple concept. When you go online yourselves as individuals and you decide to buy something, whether it's a printer for your office or a new coffee maker for your home, and you go to a site like Amazon, I want you to think about the process as you go. You go and you look and you line up these various printers or coffee makers, and you look at the features and the price point and the reviews, and you get to a point at some point where you say, that is the service, that is the coffee maker, that is the printer I'm going to buy. I've got enough digital trust in this decision-making process that I can now consume that product, and you order it. With that as a framework of reference in mind, I now want you to think about your digital marketplace that you offer your members and prospective members for your credit unions. And I'm going to tell you that if you cannot create that same environment with your members or prospective members on how they might consume your financial services, that you don't have a contemporary solution amongst your competitors or peers, and it's probably something you need to address. So at this point, Erin has spoken to the things that you need to identify and essentially message your customers effectively. I'm going to take this into the digital strategies of once you've got them on their website, how to engage them. Now, you already saw the personalized messaging that came out. The next digital collateral really is the website engagement. Now, what you see on the right-hand side of your screen is essentially a consumer-facing mortgage board. And if you look at the sort of the construction of it, you've got get your customized mortgage loan quote. They can go in there and enter everything from veterans tags, past home buyer, if used before, first-time home buyer. And they can actually search granularly, just like for your mortgage offering, the same way that you might look for that printer on Amazon. They can get to an offer, they can see all the terms of that offer, and then consume and connect with you directly. A couple other things about that, you'll notice some testimonials on the right-hand side, particularly millennials. You know, you've probably at this point already addressed your messaging, but you know, they like knowing more about what other people say about you. But in the end, no matter how you get them there, you've got to get them to a point where they can actually transact and submit a request for service back into your organization, and that gives you a very highly converting outcome. In fact, we see that consumers that shop in this way financially convert at 25% in mortgage. And if it's higher in other verticals, mortgage has its own rules, and that was really fallout where sometimes the consumer might not fully understand the value of their home or their income, and there's a number of the nuances in mortgage that keep mortgage down at 25%. But that being said, that's still a very high transactional rate for digital media.
Adam, if I can pause you just for a moment, we do have a question on that from Amy saying, what do you validate as conversion. What I think she's asking is, what do you say is a conversion? How do you identify? How do you identify that?
So at Loantek, we have 4 product silos. We have a core pricing engine, right, that delivers 2 million consumer-facing offers every day on everything from institution websites to domains like Zillow and LendingTree and Bankrate. So we drive this pricing automation, and we also, in our other silos, have the record management, for the inbounds on that, complete with full Salesforce type dashboarding, right? So you can see conversion data, CRM, and obviously we do the website integration. So our four silos of pricing engine, record management, CRM, and website integration allow us to really see how the consumer interacts with the message, how they shop on the website, when they submit a record, and then we're able to follow those records all the way through to completed transactions for the users that are using our CRM and our record management. And we've been in this space for 5 years. We have a very close ear, essentially, to our clients, and so we've really worked to be agile to get around improving their conversion ratio. But essentially, I think the biggest piece about the conversion on this is that the consumer never reaches back and contacts this institution unless their value proposition is met. No different than when you're buying that printer. Unless your value proposition isn't met, you're not placing that order. The other big thing about the increased conversion ratio is that when they reach out to that institution directly. They're expecting to hear back from that institution. They didn't go into some commoditized lead form. So you have a highly transacting exclusive engagement that's already cemented around terms that you know meet their value proposition. Those are probably the biggest facets of that.
Great, yeah, I think that sounds good.
I think let's go to the tool section here. So we'll talk about those tools and what it takes to make this work from a technical digital marketplace standpoint, right? So again, you heard us speak to the 4 product silos that we use to do this. We have the record management, we have the website integration for our clients' partners, and those are both, we have everything from plugins to customizable APIs where they can control the consumer experience. And then we have the pricing engine at the base of this. And so by using those things in concert, you are able to identify the members that you're looking to engage into a shopping experience. You're able to give them really relative valid messaging that they're going to respond to, and you're able to actually facilitate a consumption of digital information that brings about transactions. You're also able to go out in other digital strategies and create new member engagement, which then come down into our record manager. So as a credit union, you might engage in social media or SEM or search engine optimization. There's any number of digital strategies you can do to attract those consumers that are out on their phones and their iPads and bring them into this type of experience. The key is, though, is that once you get that consumer record, is to engage them with the relative information that's going to bring them into this sort of shopping cycle and induce them to go next. Let's go to the engagement tool slide if we could, Erin. So one of the things that we do is we really measure what's going on in engagement. So users of Loantek will look at the messaging out of their CRM, the number of automated messages that are going out, and we essentially, the internal name for this in our office is called the fish finder, because essentially that red line up on top is the watermark of all email activity on a given day. The gray line that you see in the middle, those are all the consumers that are opening your email. You don't really know if they're deleting it or they're reading it or how engaged they are, so we sort of refer to that as, the fish under the boat. But the yellow line at the very bottom, those are your most highly engaged consumers. Those are the consumers that are going through, they're clicking back into your website, they're going into that shopping experience, they're checking out the media and the content that you put in front of them. Now inside of Loantek, the platform originator, essentially, who has those client records underneath their account management, is able to go and review this on a day-over-day basis. You can click into any one of those data points and go out and start contacting those consumers directly about the services of your credit union, knowing that their level of engagement is either medium or high, or none at all. But one thing that's really interesting, if you look at that delivery ratio of 98.7%, we send out millions of financial specific messages with an incredible spam rating of like 95% or higher, which is almost impossible to do for a company like Loantek. But the way we achieve that, to go back and speak to some of the things we discussed earlier, is when customers see something that's very specific and exclusive to them, that contains content all about them and their current needs, you're no longer, you're not some spammy mortgage institution or a finance institution. You're actually helping them with a need, and you get a much higher engagement. Let's roll down a little bit into some other metrics now that we've kind of covered engagement at a high level. I want to make sure that our credit unions understand some of the basics of pipeline management that they should be qualifying. If you go down and do a digital strategy and you decide to go forward and put this type of technology to work, right? You should have a system, and Loantek provides that, of evaluating key performance indicators. And these key performance indicators will help you manage everything from any marketing spend that you put forward to this, to management of your platform personnel, the people they're interacting with, your members, your prospective members. And we really can look at this in a number of stages. In fact, you can customize these stages, but at a very high level. The stages that you're going to concern yourself with most are newly assigned contacts, the contacts that you're actually speaking with, the qualified versus converted, what actually goes into processing. And then out of all of that, right, at the very end of the day, you're going to have bad, dead leads, essentially, people that came into your top funnel but went nowhere. And you're going to have those that closed and that became new members, or converted other existing members that converted additional services with you. And so rolling forward, we take a look at how to measure those things at a high level. Erin, could you cue my next slide for me, if you'd be so kind? So here's a sample dashboard. It might be of note to tell you that our own sales force, our own business development team inside of Loantek uses our technology. And this is just a quick snapshot, but at a high level, I can tell how many leads are in a given person's pipeline, what status they're in as far as whether, I can even tell whether they're answering the phone if we're connecting them by automated phone call, how many they're speaking to, how many are qualified, converted, what their close ratios are, and the value in total of the pipeline. On the lower half of that dashboard, I can actually see what's coming into the pipeline, where that business is coming from, and that helps me allocate the ROI of my media campaign. So on one end, I'm able to basically evaluate what's actually hitting pay dirt, how much is in qualified stages, and on the other, I can look at what's driving that engagement. Go ahead and go next, please. So when we look at this and we think about how to get there, we look at a couple of things, right? So we look at some of the technical needs for traffic assessment conversion metrics. And one of the very first things I would tell you is you really need to A/B test campaigns side by side. So that might be anything from a Google AdWords campaign to a Facebook campaign. And then within those campaigns, you need to A/B test the landing page environments that those consumers are finding. And here's why you do that. You need a measure of any campaign against another campaign. It's great that you're getting a return on a given campaign. Call it Google AdWords, just for lack of a better one that's off of mind right now. But how does that stack up against maybe a LinkedIn or a Facebook campaign or some other campaign that you're running? Because dollar cost allocation is really all about where to spend your money based on what's coming back in and converting. Then similarly, under that A/B testing, if you have a campaign that's working, is it optimized, right? So just because you're getting leads from a given marketing source that you've chosen to go down that line doesn't mean you're getting an optimum number of leads. So you'll need to go down the line of both comparing campaigns back and forth against each other and the digital market collateral that those consumers are encountering to make that an optimum funnel. And this really starts day one. So the things that you'll need, obviously, to make this sticky is you'll need a CRM to keep those customers engaged at various stages. You'll want to run Google Analytics. It's free. It's simple to apply to your website so that you can track the volume and the conversion path of these consumers that are coming in. And lastly, if you're going to do anything with search engine optimization where you want people finding your credit union on a sort of a non-sponsored basis, just in the organic search engine results, you'll want to employ a software piece called Moz. And Moz will allow you to establish some keywords that you might want to look up, like auto loans in Kansas City, or your local market home equity loan, or some service that you want to hold yourself out. And it'll help you understand how your website ranks with respect to those organic searches, and give you some tools on how to make yourself improve your ranking, essentially, on sites like Google, Bing, Yahoo, and others. So those are really key tools to have when you go down in a digital strategy. Let's roll next if we could. So when you get into this, you're going to wind up in sales management to a certain extent, and you're going to want to use the metrics that you have inside of your CRM to identify things like poor loan officer follow-up or poor lead quality. And so there are some things, and I'll tell you that wasted leads are probably the #1 bane, in my experience, of any sales organization. So you're going to want some easy ways to make sure that your sales force, so your platform originators, are actually contacting the leads that you've worked so hard to get them. And so some things that you might want to look at is look at their attempts in your lead management system, set some criteria up that are easily measurable so that you can see that the leads are actually being worked at key stages of contact and pre-contact. The other thing that you might find is, and this is more true if you're purchasing consumer records, particularly I find this true in commoditized records where you go to a given lead supplier and they're selling a lead 4 or 5 times over, right? And if you flood your sales staff with poor quality leads, you might find that they're documenting them, they're working the heck out of them, but they're not going anywhere. And in that case, you probably need to change your lead vendor, because you'll actually burn out your sales force on poor quality, and they'll start losing faith in the digital strategy as a whole. Let's roll next. One of the key examples of good quality leads are high contact rates, right? You'll know that your digital strategy is effective if you look into your CRM and you see out of a given number of leads that a percentage, a significant percentage, let's call it 50% or higher, are actually engaging in conversations with your platform employees. That is an absolute critical benchmark. You can't create a new member for your credit union or add a new service typically if you're never in communication with that customer. So at a very high level, in contact is a fantastic measure of your digital strategy, but you might need sales training if you find that nothing is moving forward. And this is where you get that comparative analysis between employee A and employee B. You'll undoubtedly have top performers and some others that are not top performers, and a lot of times if the quality of the consumer contact is equal across the board, you'll be able to identify some people in your organization that will benefit from sales training. Because at that point, and by the way, until you get that, you might want to rotate those contacts and make them work with, or have them work with some other individuals in your company, so that they can polish up their skills and come up to the same level of performance as some of your other folks in your company. Let's roll next. One of the last slides, we talk about qualified versus converted. Our CRM is specifically designed to help your platform people really fine-tune of the people they're contacting, which ones are essentially applicants and which ones are leaning to a closed application. Not that they won't follow up with all of these people in a proper contact management system, but it's a way of them looking at a group of consumers that they're talking to, that they've got applications in, and segregating that subset to say, I'm going to follow up with these ones first because I know that they've got a higher engagement. They've already said, hey, essentially, I'm going to talk to my wife. We'll get back to you tomorrow at 3 o'clock. They're already leaning towards being a consumer. So we're going to segregate those two so they can really put their effort to a fine point on their most highly qualified and most likely to close transactions. Let's roll next. Bad debt leads, before you close your digital strategy, there are some very telling tales in bad debt lead ratios. In one case, I have a client, he's been a client of ours since inception. He was once a originator for an institution. He's now a national sales director for the institution, and I'd like to think that Loantek has been a big part of that. But you'll see some things where when we were looking over his dashboard a couple months back, one of his originators had a 4 times greater bad debt lead ratio. And it just screamed for training because everybody else in his organization had a certain benchmark of success. So make sure you look at your digital strategies from all sides before you decide to kill a facet of it. It may not be the digital strategy itself. It may be something broken in between. It could be, but at the same point, if universally you're getting a low conversion and your salespeople are telling you that, hey, the consumers we get through this media source or this traffic channel have a lower level of engagement, then you can dollar cost average accordingly. And then the other thing is, very early on, I would watch what comes out of your sales floor into process, because listen for quality of loan applications and packaging, and just make sure that you're getting good quality packages into the organization from your sales team initially, because remember, your sales team is going to feel a pressure to perform as well. This is if you launch a new media campaign, everybody wants it to be a success. And one of the things I've seen organizations do, or salespeople in organizations, is they start talking to these consumers and they want to get them into processing, and they really can bog down your processing unit with poor quality in hopes of making this program a success. So make sure that as much as we're pushing the front end messaging out, we're engaging these members, we're driving them to your platform, and then with that new influx of business is putting in quality units in process.
Outstanding. All right. I think we're running a little bit long. It looks like most people have stuck with us, so we appreciate that. I guess I'd just like to say, in summary, I think we've kind of hit the nail on the head in terms of personalization, reaching out to members on an individual basis, and delivering them that custom content. And Adam, some of those open rates are just astronomical. I mean, you can see the engagement of members when you just make those simple steps. There are tools involved with creating systems like this that we kind of went over, and we're going to leave our information on this last slide if anyone has any additional questions or follow-up. And then finally, there's a lot of things to measure and to adjust some of that A/B testing to make sure you're maximizing your digital strategy and the potential of this strategy. Adam, did you have anything else? Oh.
No, I think it was excellent. I'm glad to be a part of it, Erin. Thanks for putting this together, and I look forward to helping any of the credit unions essentially develop their digital strategies with you. I think this is a great program.
Sounds good. Okay, it doesn't look like we have any other questions. Amy, thank you for yours earlier. If you do have any questions, this is our information. We'll also be making a recording of this available online as well if there's anyone you'd like to share this with. So I guess that concludes our webinar today. Thanks again for joining, everyone, and have a great day.
Thank you, Erin.